Hello and welcome to another episode of To Be Perfectly Honest, episode of The Mandalorian. Here we have episode 2, and as always we have a bunch of spoilers, so make sure you've watched everything on Disney Plus before you check this out. If you have, go ahead and proceed and enter the spoiler zone. I'm Cory, and once again with me is Matty B. And today we're talking episode 2. We had another episode that dropped, and Matt, this is pretty freaking awesome. I don't know the last time, Netflix is a different story. You get everything all at once. But when you're actually watching something that is coming on a weekly basis and you get 2 episodes in 1 week, I feel like it's Christmas pretty much.
Christmas twice in 1 week.
Pretty much. I'm going to get it off my chest right off the bat. It was a short one.
It was.
Only 32 minutes. Am I right with that? It's very, very short.
But not that much shorter than the last episode.
It's not. And I think really if you look at it, in my mind, which this is totally made up in my mind, so, go with it if you want to. But I feel a little bit like maybe they shot the pilot and the pilot was running a little bit too long and they were like, oh, we should do? Cut it into 2 episodes. Like, I'm pretty sure if you didn't watch last week's episode and you're like, I just got Disney Plus now, like I was working, and you watched the first episode and right then the second one launched and you played it, like you would feel like it was all one episode. And that's pretty common to do, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. I was talking to Matt earlier. Just kind of felt like they combined the first. I'm just hoping that they're not all 30 minutes.
Please God, yeah.
Is there any literature on that? Do we know?
No, I think it's a pretty big mystery right now. Honestly, a lot of people didn't even know when it was going to launch. There was a lot of speculation about that. So I do think that I think it's pretty high odds that we're not going to see another 30-minute episode. I think we're going to look for more a 45-minute episode, maybe a 60-minute episode, maybe. But you never know until next week. Now that we're on this Friday schedule, it's going to be every Friday. I think it's pretty reliable that we can guess it's going to be about 3 or 4 Alaska time, which is like 5 o'clock Pacific time. So we'll see. That might change, but I'm pretty sure that's going to be the schedule going on. Unfortunately, that's kind of crappy for me personally, but we're going to do what we can do and get the podcast out to you guys as soon as possible. With this one, though, we don't have a whole lot, so I think we should just kind of jump into it. We'll go through the episodes and then kind of talk about some questions. Some questions I have from last week are still kind of coming along the way here. And then I'm just more intrigued. A couple things I think we got a little bit of an answer to, but yeah, lots of stuff to come. So let's go ahead and jump into it. So we have the Mandalorian, and this one was called Chapter 2, The Child. So did you like that this was named The Child? Do you feel like it was the adult child with gray hair?
It is what it is. What's in a name?
What is in a name? I do think that this one was, I appreciated the Yoda baby, for lack of a better word, even more, or the child, I guess is what we can just call it. The last one, I was like, oh, cool, a Baby Yoda, but we literally saw like 4 frames of it, and then that was it.
I'm still enamored with the practical effects. I think that they do a really good job.
Totally.
And again, watching it with Cambria, she's all about the
baby.
The cutie.
I will say there are a lot of times where I'm pretty sure maybe I'm wrong, but Baby Yoda is a animatronic puppet.
Mm-hmm.
So there are.
But they might be doing it the same way that they did Dark Crystal, where they have the puppet and then they animate on top of the puppet the eyes and.
I can see that. Also, there's scenes where there's no way that it's not a complete CGI scene for him. So like when we have the Mudhorn scene, he kind of goes out of the way. There's no way that is not all done, You see the shadow underneath it that's artificially created.
I don't know, but still having a physical thing to film allows you to splice that in and allows you to make a model that makes it a lot more realistic.
Totally. My point is I have a really hard time identifying what is, practical and what's CGI. And I think that's when it's done most beautifully. I think this is going to age really well. And I think, honestly, it's the great time that we're in right now. I think right now is honestly where, for a lot of things, it's pretty freaking good. And this definitely benefits from that. So we open up and we have Baby Yoda and the Mandalorian. And we actually found out today there was an interview with the actor who plays Mando. And he actually revealed his name. And Matt, do you remember what his name is?
I believe it was Din Djarin.
I believe that is too. Here, I have it in my notes. It's definitely Din Djarin. So what do you think about this name? Does this fit this character to you?
It doesn't not fit it. Again, what's in a name?
Yeah.
I think the proof is in the pudding, and I don't really care what he's called, especially if we haven't heard his name yet in the story. It doesn't really seem to matter that much.
Yeah.
But as far as Star Wars names go, I feel like it definitely fits in the canon with everything else.
Totally. So if you hear us call him Din, if we're calling him Mando, interchangeable right now at this point. In the actual show, we haven't known what his name is yet. So really, I don't think I'm going to go with that too much. It feels a little weird.
We're still calling the one guy Werner Herzog.
Yeah, totally. We open up and basically we have Din or Mando. He's with the baby in the little pod, and they're going through this kind of cavern to get back to the ship. And when they get to the ship, they are basically attacked, and they're attacked by these guys. He gets kind of beat down a little bit, but we also find out they have a tracker. So this means that these are yet another bounty hunter sent after this child. So that's 3 bounty hunters now on this planet that we're seeing, and we know there's been many more that have come before this.
4, isn't it? Because there's 3 of these guys plus IG-11.
True. I'm going to count trackers, put it that way.
A couple things in this scene that I just think about. One, first of all, he never got the memo. No disintegrations.
Mm-hmm.
Totally just zapped that one dude at the end.
Yeah.
Loved it. Second of all, those little rat aliens.
Yeah.
They remind me of the beginning scene in Jurassic Park: The Lost World. The little dinosaurs that came and peck at them and stuff.
Yeah.
So they're eating them. The scene ends and they've come out and they're eating the remains.
Totally.
I'm just pretty sure that's happening.
Love it. Disgusting, but I love it. So we also have some pretty good shots of Mando. And
finally he uses his gun. That's just
totally. I love it. I think we definitely have confirmation now throughout a lot of the scene that only 2 parts of his armor are Beskar. The other parts, I think you can definitely tell with the coloring, they're really bent up now, and later on when he does fight the Medhorn, they get obliterated pretty much.
They do.
So that's really interesting. We have a scene where
they're dollar store Beskar.
Yeah, he's like, this is all I could afford. This is my question to you. So the starting piece is the helmet, right? And this is definitely Beskar, right?
I would suspect.
But that has to be literally, you could take all of that helmet and you could probably make almost all the other pieces of armor, right? It's a lot of Beskar. I would think.
I went into this thinking that was Beskar anyways. In fact, that was the thing when the guy takes the knife in the first episode and he's like, is this real Beskar?
Yeah.
And scratches it. Maybe that was him being like, oh, this isn't real Beskar. I can tell.
Yeah. I don't know, man. Really interesting. But I love this color theme. It works really well and it goes with this planet really well. Also, another thing that was kind of came out, I believe this planet is called Arvella 7. So we actually know what planet this is. So interesting. Not one that I've heard before in canon.
Oh, that means it's a moon.
Oh, yeah. Well, yes, it is a moon of that system. But definitely interesting. We know the name now, at least. It's not just some nameless planet. And I'm wondering if we're going to come back here at all, or after this end of this episode, we see kind of everybody take off, if that's the end of this part.
You mentioned earlier while we were talking before this, but how you liked how they incorporated the reflections in his helmet.
Yeah, definitely.
And I mentioned it last episode.
They're picking up on little cues and really, that's the little thing that makes it really believable and it makes it rewatchable.
It's like those scenes in a movie when you're watching the movie and the camera moves and the character is looking in the mirror and the camera moves behind the person, but you never see the camera in the mirror.
Totally.
It's kind of the same thing. I really like that.
Totally. So we have Mando and the child, and they're kind of licking their wounds, and he's out on the desert at night. A lot of these scenes are like very reminiscent of scenes from the original Star Wars. You know, you have like this desert planet, you have all these night scenes, you have these scenes through like this cavern. It just is like, oh, this is familiar, and I feel comfortable with it.
Even for Cambria, who's, you know, like I've grown up with it.
Yeah.
And I've introduced her into it, and she's only 10 years old. But there was the scene where Mando's walking over the horizon, and it was like almost the scene out of the promotional material.
Yeah.
And then they got the little capsule floating next to him, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, that's just like Luke Skywalker and the first movie." And I'm like, "Yeah,
totally.
You're not wrong."
Totally. They're calling back. They're taking everything they can from the visual memory of that movie and calling back to it.
Yeah.
So we have this really cool scene where we have little child Yoda, and this is where I think in my mind he transformed from a baby to a child. Is he's able to walk, right? Mm-hmm. He's able to get out of the egg, and you're like kind of like, oh, yeah. Okay,
he's
this
a toddler.
Is a little interesting.
Spit that out.
Right, exactly. And he tries to help Mando. I remember last episode where you're talking about how there are a couple scenes where you can kind of tell that they're in these really crazy helmets where you can really only see this much. Another one of these is when he's trying to like cauterize his wound. He's like not even on the wound. Like,
yeah,
like that might not be why it's working out.
And I wonder what is he trying to do in this scene? Like, not Mando. Obviously, he's like laser.
Oh, he's totally trying to force heal him. There's no way he's not.
What is that? I've never seen that before. Is that something that I missed?
So evidently, it's totally a thing. I've watched a couple breakdowns, and I guess there's even a lot of rumor that in the original Star Wars, when Luke is actually the Tusken Raiders get him, and you have Obi-Wan stands over him and kind of puts his hand over his head when he's laying down, that he's force healing him. And there's a couple other times that this happens throughout stuff too. And then Darth Sidious does it to Darth Vader when he's, or Anakin being transformed into Darth Vader to kind of bring him back. So it's definitely a thing. But at least we can kind of see what he's trying to do, even if it's possible for him or not.
Well, does that mean that this little thing has had some form of training in his 50 years?
So this is what I want to talk about after this. But yeah, I think this points out to... I got a lot of questions.
Also, his robes look reminiscent of Jedi robes almost.
Totally. So anyways, of course, Mando's like, what are you doing? Go back. He puts him in the egg twice, and then they end up getting back, and of course,
him up like a little baby. And
we have this ship, and it's hard to see because we're a little bit over it, but the ship is essentially in tatters. It is destroyed. So it is a pretty sad scene, must say.
Yeah.
So...
Understandable why he...
Time to murder some Jawas, and murder them really well. He did. Of course, though, it's like, dude, you do realize they're in a big movie.
You know what? That actually reminds me of something from A New Hope, though, too. Not Empire Strikes Back. What am I thinking of? Shadows of the Empire. If I recall correctly, it wasn't the stormtroopers that... I mean, like, Obi-Wan says that there were stormtroopers that attacked the Jawas.
Yeah.
But in one of the things, it was Boba Fett was trying to track down Luke Skywalker.
Interesting.
And that's why when they were picking up all the Jawa bodies, it was just the rags. Like, they were...
Yeah. Completely disintegrated.
Yeah, they were gone.
Oh, interesting. So... really interesting. This entire scene, I think, is really great for a couple of reasons. We have a little bit of action, right? Because this is a pretty short episode, so we don't get a whole lot of it until the very end. But this is a little bit of it. We're like, whoa, what's going to happen to the Jawas? He kills like 3 of them. I believe he disintegrates them. And then he goes on kind of a journey to kind of chase after it. But what's really...
Fast and the Furious car chase.
Right. Star Wars edition.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting to me is this pod that this little the child is in is like totally keeping up the entire time, and he has like controls that will work with it, and it's just like this element of like the child's there for all of it. He's not going to be like, oh, you can't watch this, I'm going to disintegrate some Jawas. He's like, yeah, you can watch, that's cool. But then he's like trying to save him, put him out of the way. Like, it's just really interesting. So he basically gets to the top of this crazy contraption. We have like an Indiana Jones moment where they're like, Baba, Baba, And they like try to take it and go ahead and take the cruiser and basically put it against a big dirt cliff, and he like rolls to the side, and then he's like trying to climb up, and they're like throwing crap down at him.
There's one scene where he like reaches up and puts his hand in the little window, and then they close the window, and he's like,
my hands. Yeah. Little goddamn Jawas.
Some little, slapstick physical comedy.
And of course he gets to the top, and there's
an army of Jawas.
Literally like 100 of them. Like, what do you think is going to happen, man? I would have probably tried to take out their vehicle first. I don't know. That'd be me, but who knows? Maybe he's a little ragey.
The sun deck where they're all up there tanning.
With their full-on robes. Yeah, totally. So anyways, he falls off, and that's that. Basically, SOL, right? We got to figure out.
He takes some hits in this show.
And falls. That's quite a height to fall down.
Yeah.
So, whatever. It's Star Wars. I'm down for it. But yeah, he definitely takes a hit. He does get up pretty fast, and at this point, they basically resign themselves. I mean, the child is floating, but he's like, okay, well, we got to figure out what to do. So they decide they're going to go back, and they're going to go back to Quill. And so he is this guy. And pretty much right away, he's like, okay, well, we just got to talk to the Jawas. Like, did you try to talk to them? I mean, come on.
Yeah.
And so they go on a little bit of a journey. They come up to them. They're very much like, hey, bro, you disintegrated 3 of our friends. We know who you are. Like,
it didn't seem like they cared that much, though. They're still like willing to be like, just trade
money.
With us. Yeah.
Totally. So he gets in, and basically first they're like, okay, well, we want your Beskar. And he's like, hell to the no. Then they're like, oh, well, what about this kid? And
he said hell to the no in Jawa, though.
Yeah, totally. And they're like, oh, you speak like a Wookiee.
Yeah. I really appreciated that. Like, I thought that was
was funny. Oh, totally.
A really nice little take on it.
So then then the next chip that's on the table is basically this kid, and he's like, no, seriously, I'm just going to give you some steel. I'm not going to give you this living creature baby, right? Plus he knows, hey, I got a shit ton of Beskar from this kid if I turn him in, which is another question I have for later, so we'll save it a little bit. But finally we come down, and Quill's like, there has to be something else. Like, name what it is, we'll do it. And we find out there's something that Jawas really like. And you might not expect it, but it's suka eggs. So we have this cool little scene where like he's inside their vehicle. He's like,
I thought when they said the egg, I thought they were talking about the little pod. The little pod that had, they didn't want the baby, but they just wanted the pod.
They're like, this pod is really cool.
The floating pod.
This is the best. So we end up getting here, and then we come to, as Matt affectionately likes to call it, the butthole of the earth, for obvious reasons. And we come to this, it's basically a mudhorn den, right? Mudhorn, basically a big freaking rhino.
Yeah.
With a woolly mammoth body kind of thing. He gets his ass beat pretty hard.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's a good thing that's muddy.
Yeah. Real gross.
Yeah.
I think your daughter said probably at least 50% poop.
Yeah. She did not like the look of it.
Yeah, it's pretty nasty. But yeah, kind of useless. He has his rifle. Basically, he can't get that to work because of all the mud. So that's strike one.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned with the way that manufacturing process went into place. We have firearms that we have that are mud resistant, yet
seriously,
a little bit disappointed with that one, but
so that doesn't work. Then he gets tossed around. He gets tossed around quite a few times. He tries to use the flamethrower. Even though this thing is covered in hair, I guess it's soaked in poop and piss enough to where it's like basically fire retardant. His whipcord, right into it. Does he get it on the horn? Where does he attach?
It was like in the face.
Oh, like you do.
Yeah.
And
the soft face tissue.
And he's like, I'm gonna basically go water skiing with this on the mud. So he does this. He gets thrown. Like, it does not end well, right? Then we have Baby Yoda come in for the kill.
Yeah. And then one of the screenshots that we don't have, though, is the scene right before that when he just kind of, you can tell he just kind of like
has given up a little.
He's given up a little bit.
Yeah.
He's just he's just like, okay, well, this is over. I'm just gonna stand here and hold my little buck knife out and pray for the best.
Good thing he did, because Baby Yoda comes in, floats that mother sky high. At first I was like, is he trying to choke it? Is he just lifting it up?
I thought he was just like put a wall in front of him or something.
Did something, because he definitely stopped him in his tracks, and then he lifted him up.
Yeah.
But so we have that, and then that's when Mando's like, okay, I'm going in, and bam. Now, you might have got our sarcasm a little bit here, but I don't understand how this knife would do anything to this huge freaking mudhorn. Like, there's no way. This thing, you can even when he's moving around, it's like, oh, it's stuck in the wall. Like,
I mean, I can come up with some reasons, but none of them have been explained in the show.
Totally.
It could be a vibroblade. It could be a force pike knife. I mean, in real life, there's like scuba divers that have knives they use for sharks.
Yeah.
Pretty awesome. They like load a shotgun shell in it, and that's not what that is.
Yeah, not that I can tell, but
that was a pocket knife that took down a
suspension of disbelief.
12-ton.
Maybe we also have Yoda like going in like for the crush the trachea. Yeah. You don't know, but then we wipe the little baby's tired from murdering things. So he takes a nap for the rest of the episode, pretty much. And so he comes back, he goes in, he finds this disgusting mop of an egg and brings it to the Jawas, and the Jawas are very excited because it is essentially Jawa Easter, because Cadbury cream egg, and so disgusting.
Yeah.
I've not been to this disgusted from a Star Wars movie.
Actually, I mean, it doesn't really look that bad. It's just that it's raw. I could see it scrambled up, throw in a little bit of the bacon.
I think it's the mop right next to it that really grosses me out.
It does, and it does have like a weird coconut look to it, which doesn't bother me. It's just when he's
coconut cream egg, everybody.
It's when he's petting it. It's when he's petting it before he pulls it out of the ground.
He's like,
not okay with that.
So Jawas are like, okay, cool, man. Here's your stuff. So Quill and Mando go back with the child. Child's still sleeping. Quill's like, is he still sleeping? Oh, yeah. What actually happened? Oh, I don't know. Like, are we completely unaware here that this is the Force being done? Because it seems pretty obvious to me.
They seem to. Well, I mean, also, I don't know why. It's like if the Legend of the Mandalorians made it this far out, you would think the Legend of
totally.
Jedi or whatever.
Yeah, because, I mean, we're not that far away from it, right? I mean...
Well, you're on the Outer Rim, but I mean...
So you would think it would take a little bit longer even to know that, like, the Legend's dying out.
Yeah, the Jedi and the Mandalorians fought wars is not new subject matter, so...
Quill's like, hey, I'm going to help you fix your ship. There's a little montage of them fixing up the ship, which seems a little ridiculous. They're like, this tube armor goes here. Oh, cool.
And they fix the ship and he fixes his armor.
That's true. That's like the Mandalorian way, right? His religion.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we get that done. We kind of say goodbye to Quill.
You don't have a screenshot of how the Grinch stole Christmas.
I don't think I do. Yeah, no, I don't.
They had all the stuff strapped up to the back of on that sled, and that's what it reminded me of.
Seriously. You think the Jawas will be like, oh, the egg was so good, we'll just drive it back for you. But hey, why not? Jawas, they're cheap.
That's all the mileage on the... Imagine the gas that thing burns up.
Oh, yeah. That's why they're constantly having to trade nonstop.
It's like 18 tanks in one.
Seriously. And then we have basically our shot where we are leaving this planet or this moon, and we're going on our journey, and we get the little kid, and he does wake up at the very end.
The whole thing, I'm thinking, as he takes off, though, suspension of disbelief, I'll give it to him, but I'm like, okay, well, it runs, but you haven't vacuum tested this thing. Like, you get out into the vacuum of space, and you're done.
Yeah.
Toast.
Totally.
Implodes on itself.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like just kind of the Star Wars. You kind of have to have your suspension of disbelief a little bit. Like, to be really honest, that...
To be perfectly
honest, it's like, that's the thing, right? It's this old technology, like this technology that we somehow lost or whatever, It's not believable, but it is believable, right? Like, Yeah, can you Jimmy rig a spaceship together? No, we cannot. But in this universe, totally. You put a tube together with another tube, and you go boom, and it's there, and it's completely pressured. Tools. Exactly. So, I mean, I'll believe it. I'm ready for it. I think this was a good episode overall. I really did like it. I got a little bit more characterization for Mando. I got a little bit more of this planet. Like, I got a little closure for it, I would say. Like, I don't really think we need to go back here at all.
Yeah.
And I kind of felt like we're done. I don't know if we're going to see Quill again. What's your opinion on that?
I don't know if we're going to see him again or IG-11, which I mean, those are two big names as far as the voice go.
Yeah.
The voice acting. I don't know if I would be upset one way or the other if we don't get either one of them back, but
yeah,
I know that if we're looking at 30-minute episodes every week, I'm gonna be a little bit bothered.
A little ticked off.
I'm just hoping that this was an extra credit episode.
I think it was. I think they knew that there was gonna be a lot of hype with it. Also, the new Star Wars game came out as well on the 14th. Yep,
Fallen Jedi.
Or the midnight of the 14th. So, I think there's a lot of momentum on this, and I think they know a lot of people are going to be talking about it, but I think this just like put it over the edge a little bit, right? Like the first episode, the big thing was like, there's a Baby Yoda.
Yeah.
And this one's like, man,
I still love
Jawas,
artwork
everything
at the end of the episodes are
still really great. This one I felt a little bit more like it was made after the show was actually made, perhaps.
Well, I'm not sure. Like the artwork shows him without a cape a lot.
Oh, do you think the cape might? No, I don't know.
I don't know.
Interesting.
I feel like it's concept art. I really do feel like it's concept art.
did definitely the first time. This one, it makes me doubt a little bit, and maybe that's just some of them. I can see either way.
Yeah.
But overall, really, really do like that. I think it's a nice touch. Let's talk music, because I think you and I, from what I've heard, a lot of people are a little mixed on the music. And we talked about this the first time, but I'm in love with it. I think it's great. I think it's refreshing.
I feel like it sets a tone, and I feel like the tone that it sets is a Western tone.
Totally.
I feel like
that's what I'm loving.
It's Western techno.
It makes me feel like I don't know what's going to happen next. And speaking of that, okay, so we've had this entire episode, right? We have this child is along with him for the ride the entire time. This child's going with him. Where do you think he's going? I mean, he's going back to claim the bounty, right? My question is, though,
I feel like he might get cold feet. I feel like that's like the trope that they're going towards. Or he's going to get cold feet after the fact.
Well, I think he just realizes that this is my opinion on it, and it could be totally wrong. But my opinion is that he's had how many bounty hunters come after this child? He knows this is going to stop until he goes and puts a end to the source of all these bounty hunters. So I think he's going to go in and have a little deception. He's going to get that Beskar. He's going to take care of that. He's going to take care of that problem, and then be on his merry way. But I think that's going to bite him in the butt a little bit, and we're going to see that later on. But I think this next episode, we're definitely going back to where he picked up the bounty.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of emotional attachment already to this little child.
Yeah.
And I would be genuinely surprised if they just drop that plot point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and another thing too is it kind of brings to mind these old stories of, Miyamoto Musashi. There was a anime or manga that ran, and for whatever reason I get this vibe of like the adult badass taking care of the younger child as they age and everything. But I don't know. We don't see any of this character in the trailer at all. So, I just don't feel like they're going to drop it. That's my thing. I could be wrong.
I mean, if I had to put money on it, I would say this next episode, like I said, we go back to where the bounty came from. I think he's going to try to decimate the people who are putting the bounty out for that. He's going to try to take that Beskar, and then that's going to maybe put him in touch with maybe a group of rebels, some fringe element. To me, I don't personally think we're going to see Baby Yoda floating next to him for the rest of the series.
No.
That just seems ridiculous to me. I liked it in this episode, but I really don't think it's feasible for a lot of it, right? That'd be just
also,
really
the
negligent.
scientist guy is a fairly famous actor.
True. Have you seen, now there's been a couple people that have like zoomed in and enhanced on his shoulder, and he actually has a Camino cloner emblem. So a lot of people are saying that it could be a possibility that that's what he's trying to do, is he wants to clone, which makes sense. I mean, we've already kind of talked about this as why would you want this Baby Yoda,
force
right?
enhanced army.
My guess would be they're probably interested, right? Obviously, this child, this 50-year-old child, is really force sensitive and very force strong. And maybe that's due to the midichlorians, right? If we're to believe George Lucas's explanation and everything. And maybe it's something where midichlorians can only be harvested from someone who's alive, right? I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I do think that's another little plot. Definitely interested to see how that's going to happen next week's episode. And that's why I think it's definitely going to be a longer episode. I just don't think we're going to get 30 minutes and be done, you know?
I hope so.
Because we're going to have a new world.
And there's more.
Right?
There's more to this species, though. Like,
has to be.
I was reading an article on my way here. It was talking about how, George Lucas might be upset that they're going in this route with this species, this unnamed species.
See, the thing though is he was really heavily involved with this.
He was, and that was one of the things that they mentioned. It was like that they were over the period of time from the original trilogy. And then after the prequels, he kind of like softened up a little bit. And he's like, no, you guys can take a little bit more creative license with this. Because before, he wouldn't even say that it was an actual species. Yeah. That it was an entity. Yeah. Right? Like that it was, the Force brought about these beings.
Yeah. Which can be, I mean, that's still a possibility.
Exactly.
Yeah, totally. So, really interesting. Okay, so talking about Baby Yoda. We talked about this a little bit, right? He has robes. He's obviously had something.
Yeah.
Is this training? Is this just like genetic intellect? Is this something where it's like, a baby that's born today with superpowers like an X-Men, and is like, oh, I'm just doing this and it's really natural and easy. Do you think he's been trained? What has he been doing for 50 years is my question. What has he been doing for 50 years? Who's been taking care of him? Was there any training? And how did he come about? I mean, I know the how did he come about we're not going to be able to answer. But I think we can safely say there's been some instruction or training, right? Even if it's a little bit from a very young age, like
or there's just some innate ability. I mean, because the whole idea of the Force is that the beings that are attuned to the Force have the ability to wield it naturally.
Yeah, and
you can hone that ability, especially if you're an entity or a being that isn't naturally, attuned to it, but maybe this is just something that they're, it's like learning to walk and talk and everything else. Like this is just something that it's learning as it develops. It's just a part of its brain activity.
Well, I guess this leads me to my other question is like, okay, so at one point this being either comes into existence, it's born, it's cloned, whatever, right? But we know that these, what would you say the people that had him before, were they also bounty hunters? Were they just a military group? Like whatever that gang of outlaws were that were holding him captive, I didn't get the impression they were hanging out with the baby and like being like, let's do stuff. I have a feeling that egg pod thing was closed the entire time,
I kind of feel like that too, but I don't know.
I don't either. I mean, it's more.
He
questions.
killed them all, so we'll never
he didn't
find out.
And Baby Yoda didn't seem sad about it. He wasn't like, oh darn it, I really liked them. They got to hang out with me. He's been there
also,
for a while.
Does he really express that much emotion? Because it seems kind of hard to read.
I think he really likes.
He's as hard to read. He's as hard to read as the Mando.
I mean, I wouldn't go that far, but sure, totally.
I mean, he's cute and fluffy, and his hair wiggles with the Force.
Yeah,
but
totally.
But other than that, like, I think he's hard to read. He's like he's like playing with that frog thing, and then the next thing you know, he's devouring it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I like that a lot.
Oh,
yeah.
No big deal. Yeah. Spit that out. You're gonna choke on the Lego. Nope.
Not doing it.
I'm gonna be passing that later.
Oh, gross. It's a gross poop. Do you think Mando's like changing diapers?
behind the scenes. Yeah. I don't know.
I don't know either. But kind of gross.
Maybe he force changes his own diapers.
I mean, let's hope.
Does he even? Does he even defecate? We don't know.
Maybe that's just the force. It just goes through.
Dissolves, eats the midichlorians and all of the life forms that grows strong.
So we kind of touched on a little bit, that Mando doesn't have a lot of emotions. I think we had talked about this last episode, but do you feel like we're going to get an episode where he takes off his helmet?
I mean, the fact that it's Pedro Pascal underneath the helmet makes me want him to take off his helmet.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. I don't. I really don't.
I think we're going to get it off. Well, we're going to get it off. I think it's going to be soon too, but that's just me. I think we need.
It wouldn't surprise me. I almost feel like the question that the guy, the bounty from the very first scene, he's like, is it true that you never take off your helmets?
Yeah, I think that's kind of
either that's a foreshadowing that it's never going to get taken off, or it's leading up to that time where you're like, oh my god,
yeah,
finally, got a breath of fresh air. Also, I have questions about their helmets too. It's like, because supposedly they're like airtight, but then like it's like you can see their neck or something underneath.
Yeah.
It just doesn't always make sense to me. But
there's a lot of circuitry involved with it, so
maybe it closes off with vacuums recognized. Who
knows? I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Like, definitely not. That's the probably more believable things of either the Mudhorn getting killed with that knife or that closing. Probably gonna go with that thing closing.
True.
But yeah, I think it's definitely interesting. I really do like this very kind of. I think that fits into the Mandalorian character, kind of being this cowboy or lone ranger, right? Too, like very self-sufficient, can take care of himself. I feel like when you go into the Mandalorian Boy Scouts, they're like, okay, so this is how you repair everything. This is how you rebuild your ship when you need to. Yeah. This is what you always do. Oh, and what's the thing that's our religion? Oh, yeah, our weapons. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Once you got that down, okay, now you graduated. Now you're into Eagle Mandalorian Scouts.
Yeah, I really enjoy the vibe that we're getting, and everybody's talking about it. We talked about it on our, leading up to the first episode, how they were going to be bringing in the spaghetti western, Akira Kurosawa, Yojimbo vibe, and I was a big Star Wars buff growing up, and that led me to Hidden Fortress and Yojimbo and Seven Samurai, and I do get this vibe out of it, and yeah, I love it.
Totally. I woke up this morning. So, like I said, Alaska time where we're at, when we go to watch this, it's like 3 or 4 in the morning. So I have to work because I have a life. And I was like, I cannot stay up and watch this. So I woke up early to watch it, and it was like 7 o'clock. I was sitting here and watching it, and I was just like, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. This is so good.
Yeah.
And now I have to go to work, and all I want to do is talk about this. And I end up talking about it with a lot of people at work, but really it's
Who's watched it though?
Half of them watched it on lunch because I was just like, oh my God. And then this happened. Blah, blah, blah. It's like, I really need an affiliate link for Disney Plus. Thank you so much. But long story short, I think it is really just something that's very word of mouth. You don't have to be a huge Star Wars fan. I have, I have a couple coworkers. I have a boss that's like, I'm not huge into Star Wars, but I'm watching it and I love it. And it's something that I can share with people. I think it's such a good entry for people that have never been in this. And I really just hope that it does kind of kick off this new generation of Star Wars. Right. Because I think it's okay to not be completely kid friendly, even though this isn't even rated that bad.
Yeah. And it's not kid friendly.
You can watch it with your daughter.
There are other things.
I guess
Marvel Runaways, not for kids.
Yeah. My point is, I guess, it doesn't seem like it is written for kids,
Right.
And I think that is fine. And that's kind of what it should be, really what took off Star Wars and what enlightened a lot of people's hearts is it was for people that are now very older adults.
And that's one of the things that I, like when I first heard that Star Wars was originally a kids movie, I didn't get that.
Yeah.
Like it didn't, Star Wars, even as a kid, I mean, I guess I was watching it as a kid, but
yeah,
it never really felt like a kid's movie to me. And I'm not sure if that was just the underlying tone of it or what, but I mean, like, dad cuts off kid's hand and
yeah. I think it suffers from this stereotype of the genre, right? I mean, sci-fi was traditionally back in the day. I mean, before sci-fi really had its heyday in the 70s, like it was something that you read comic books, or it was in a sci-fi book that you paid $1.50 to buy off of a newsstand, that kind of stuff, where it's like it was geared for kids. And so I think to a lot of laymen's, totally 100% it's a kids thing. And I think it does resonate with kids, and it sold a lot of toys, right? So like it did bring up a lot of kids, but I think you're right. Like if you look at the background story and all the elements of it, if you look at this Western kind of influence into it, 100%, like
it's ageless. I feel like that's,
totally. Yeah. I mean, it's the hero's journey, right? Like it's a story that's as old as time, that has 1,000 iterations, but I think
hero with 1,000 faces.
Yeah. So deep. I think everybody knows that, but at a certain point, it's like really, it's been done bad, right? I mean, the prequels were not great. We have some of the newer ones. Some people really like them. I think most people are kind of on them. We'll see how it ends up. That kind of is what's going to define the whole thing. Rogue One was pretty great, but I think this is another opportunity, right? Like you have a lot of chances to get this right, and so far, I mean, 2 out of 8 episodes.
Yeah,
love it. Like, so let's see where it goes from here. My only worry right now is that are we going to have enough time to get where I need to for the season for me to be like, give me another second season, or I'm going to be like, that was great, I want another second season.
Yeah, I guess we'll just have to wait and find out.
Well, that's all I had. This one was definitely a shorter one. Did you have anything else to talk about?
Nope. I think we covered all of it.
You don't want to talk about maybe why Jawas this love eating eggs so much? Biggest mystery in the world?
I don't. I suspect that there's some kind of metabolic thing that's going on. They're getting high off of that suka.
Maybe there's just like a lot of vitamin D, since they have to wear like robes the entire time they don't go in the sun.
They do go in the sun. I'm telling you.
They do not.
They sunbathe on top of that sand.
I do not want to know what a naked Jawa looks like.
Well, now I kind of do.
That's a freak.
They're like just a black hole.
Yeah,
just
pretty
red
much.
eyes and then just black.
Oh, diggy. Yeah.
Oh, teeny.
Well, that's all we have for this week. Like I said, we're now on this Friday schedule, so make sure you are staying tuned. I'm pretty sure we're having one every week up until the new movie comes out, and I think we skip a week, maybe because of the holidays, and then it's back on schedule. If you just do a quick search in Google about the time schedule, and I'll try to go ahead and put it in the description as well so you guys know what's going on. But make sure you guys are watching it as soon as it comes out, because you're going to get spoiled by everyone on Twitter and YouTube and everything else. And then as soon as you're done with that, what are you doing? Subscribe to the podcast, hit the bell notification on YouTube. You can listen to us wherever you find other podcasts. So Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and Spotify. Make sure you're subscribed. You'll get a notification as soon as it's posted, and you'll get to hear us break down the episode and take our perfectly honest take on this fantastic series that is just blowing us away. But as always, I'm Cory.
And I'm Matt.
And be perfectly honest.